Now, Jhāna. We have not finished the Jhāna and Jhāna yet. So, Jhāna and Jhāna are very close to each other in sound, spelled with N with a wavy line above, and then A, and then N with the dot beneath it, and A. Now, as I explained a few days ago, the dot beneath the letters mean that they are to be pronounced with the front of the tongue touching against the hard palate. They are called cerebrals. So Jhāna, the word Jhāna means knowing or knowledge. So there are in the manual mentioned 3 words: Panya, Jhāna, and Amoha. So they are synonyms. So in the Abhidhamma, the 3 terms are used synonymously. So sometimes Panya will be used, sometimes Jhāna, and sometimes Amoha. But they mean the same thing. So Panya also means knowing, Jhāna means knowing, Amoha means not ignorance, not delusion. So Amoha also means wisdom or understanding. And as you know, Jhāna is one of the beautiful mental factors, the last of the 25 beautiful mental factors. So Jhāna is one mental state or one mental factor, and Jhāna is the combination of 5 or 4, 3, 2 mental states. So they are different. And in Jhāna, now among the 5 Jhāna factors, do you find Panya or Jhāna there? No. So that means not that it is without Jhāna. The Jhāna is always accompanied by this Jhāna. But in the Jhanas, the concentration plays a more important role than Jhāna. That is why you practice Jhāna, but you cannot know the true nature of things. So Jhāna is the strong concentration of the object, and then this Jhāna can lead you to attaining psychic powers or abhinyas, and just that. So that is why, in order to penetrate into the nature of things, you have to practice Panya or Vipassana. In Vipassana, Panya is predominant. Without Panya, there can be no Vipassana, because with the help of Vipassana, you see the true nature of things. You see the conditioned phenomena as impermanent, suffering, and non-soul. The Jhāna and Jnana are 2 separate mental states or mental factors. Jhāna is again the combination of 5, 4, 3, or 2 mental factors. And Jnana is one mental factor, the last of the beautiful mental factors. And the concentration means, or samadhi, let us use the word samadhi. In the word samadhi, there is the sam and adi. We divide the word into 2, sam, adi. So sam, adi joined into samadhi. Now sam here means evenly and rightly, and adi means putting or placing. So placing the mind on the object evenly and rightly. Evenly and rightly means keeping the concomitants together and not let them scattered. So when concentration keep the consciousness on the object it keeps the other concomitants all together, and it does not let these to be scattered away. And also it keeps the consciousness and its concomitants on this object, on the object, and do not let them to be distracted to other objects. So that is what we call concentration. So normally we say concentration is the mind staying on the object for a longer period of time. So that is concentration, which is predominant factor in jhana. Now jhana is said to have the characteristic of penetrating things according to their intrinsic nature. That means understanding the intrinsic nature of things. You observe an object and you come to see that this object is, say, if it is material property, you say this is material property, this has no cognizing power, and so on. And if you watch your mind, you know that this mind takes the object, and that means this mind, as it were, leans towards the object, bends towards the object. And so these characteristics you see through constant observation of objects, and that seeing is called penetrating things according to their intrinsic nature. So only through panya or jhana can you see these characteristics. Now, common characteristics and individual characteristics. And its function is to illuminate the objective field. It is like light. When there is panya, then you see the objects as they are clearly. It is like a floodlight. So when there is light, you can see things in the room, and in the same way, when there is panya, you can see the object clearly. So it is compared to a lamp or a light. And it is manifested as non-bewilderment. Non-bewilderment means absence of bewilderment. You are not lost when panya is with you. So it is compared to a guide in a forest. So in a forest you don't know where to go and you are lost, but a guide comes and then he leads you safely out of the forest. So it is also like a guide in the forest. So mostly people get lost in the forest, and that is bewilderment. But when there is panya, then it will take you out of this bewilderment to safety. And so it is said to be like a guide in a forest. And its proximate cause is wise attention or yoniso manasikara. So when you have yoniso manasikara or wise attention or correct attitude toward things, then panya or understanding tends to arise. So jhana and jnana are two separate things, and now you understand that jhana is a name of the group of 5, 4, 3, 2, and 2 jhana factors, and jnana is one mental factor that belongs to the group of beautiful mental factors. Although they are different, they arise with many types of consciousness. Now you have gone through the combination of consciousness and mental factors. Even if you do not know without looking at the chart, I think the chart will help you. So the mental factors that we call jhana factors and panya, the jnana, arise simultaneously with some types of consciousness. Although they arise together and taking the same object, their functions are different. The function of Vitaka is, say, to take the consciousness and put it on the object and so on. But the function or characteristic of this understanding or jhāna is to penetrate into the nature of things or to see things as they really are. So jhāna and jhāna are two separate things. In the jhāna, concentration is predominant, and in Vipassana, jhāna is predominant. Actually, the word Vipassana is also a synonym for Panya, because Vipassana is composed of Vi and Passana seeing. Seeing means seeing with your mind, eye, and so it is understanding. So we get Panya, Jhāna, Amoha, Vipassana, now 4 synonyms for understanding or knowledge. This class is too short. Everybody is saying it is too short. So I'm not able to cover the whole book at this class. But I want you to know what you can expect from this book. So we have now covered 3 chapters. 3 chapters quickly. So I think you read the book again and check with the handouts and so on. Now the 4th chapter, I told you about the thought processes. So 4th chapter deals with thought processes, like seeing thought process, mind thought process, jhana thought process, magga thought process, and also about the registering consciousness, tadaramana. And also it gives us which jhanas arise once only, which arise, say, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, and many times. And also it teaches us what type of individuals have what type of consciousness. So in the 4th chapter, we will learn that. In the 5th chapter, the first thing taught is the Buddhist cosmos, the world according to Buddhism. So the world with its 4 great continents, and then in the middle there is a Mount Meru, and then 4 great oceans and so on, and also the 31 planes of existence. So we find 31 planes of existence in the 5th chapter. And then this chapter teaches us about what type of the relinking consciousness is for what type of being. Or in other words, what type of being takes conception with what type of consciousness. And then one section is on karma. So we learn about karma. There are different kinds of karma. Karma that gives us results in this life, karma that gives results in next life, next future life, and then karma that gives results in the existences beginning with the 3rd until one becomes arahant and dies, and then the karma which become defunct. So different kinds of karma are mentioned there. I told you about the 3-root superior, 3-root inferior, and so on. So those will be mentioned in the 5th chapter. And the last section of 5th chapter is very interesting. It is about death and rebirth. So how death occurs and how rebirth takes place. The death, rebirth, thought process, we will learn that in the last section of the 5th chapter. And then the 6th chapter deals with matter. enumeration of 28 matters, and then their different divisions, their causes, and their groupings, and how they arise and disappear in one life. And at the end of the 6th chapter is a section on Nibbana. And the 7th chapter deals with different categories. Now, when Buddha taught, he taught in different ways. Buddha possessed the ability to see into the minds of his listeners. And so Buddha knows this person is of hate temperament, this person is of attachment temperament, and so on. And also he knows what to teach to that person. Listeners are different from one another. So some listeners are familiar with the word khanda. So for such listeners, Buddha used the word khanda to teach them. But there may be other listeners who are familiar with the word dhatu. So for them, Buddha used the word dhatu, but meaning the same. So the same dhammas, the same consciousness and mental factors are given different names. And that is to enable his listeners, different listeners, to understand and to get enlightenment. Now in the 7th chapter, such categories are taught, like I will use a Pali, asavas, yogas, ogas, and so on. And in the 7th chapter you find the 5 aggregates, and then 5 aggregates of clinging, and 22 faculties, and 7 factors of enlightenment, and 4 noble truths. So these are taught in 7th chapter. And then the 8th chapter. The 8th chapter is, I think, the most difficult of the 9 chapters. First, the dependent origination is taught. But they are not so complicated, seem to be simple. But actually, as you know, dependent origination is a profound teaching, and you need a real knowledge of Abhidhamma to understand it fully. And then the next section is on Patthana, the 24 modes of relations. And Patthana is the most profound of the 7th book, and just a little bit of the Patthana relations are given in the 8th chapter. Now please note that if you study dependent origination, your understanding of dependent origination will be full or complete only when you study along with Patthana. The other day I told you about that. Like Vijnana Paccaya Nama Rupa. Because there is consciousness as condition, there are Nama and Rupa. So most people think that this relationship is as cause and effect. But actually it is not the relation of cause and effect, but just arising together and one supporting the other or supporting each other. So such relationships you understand only when you study it with reference to Patthana. But in this book, the dependent origination and Patthana are taught separately. But in Visuddhimagga, when commenting on the dependent origination, the commentator put in the Patthana also. And the last chapter or 9th chapter is on meditation. So samatha meditation and vipassana meditation you find there. But it's very, very brief. It is like an abbreviation of the Visuddhimagga. So with the help of Visuddhimagga, you can study in more detail the samatha meditation and vipassana meditation. But in this manual, both samatha and vipassana meditation will be taught in brief. So this is what we can find in this manual. And after we have studied this manual, then we can go to any Abhidhamma book and read it and understand it and enjoy understanding it. So that is why I told you we are not yet inside Abhidhamma yet, but we are going towards Abhidhamma. And so with this key, with the key of this manual, we will be able to open the door of Abhidhamma and take the treasures of Abhidhamma, whatever treasure we like from that storehouse of Abhidhamma. So I hope you will continue studying Abhidhamma. You may read the book and study as much as you can, and then when I come back, so you can study with me also. So now I'm requested to come back in June. So I have not given my promise yet, but I will try to come in June again to continue this class. So I hope to see you all at the next class also.
Okay, we shall have 15 minutes for question and answer. Since this is the concluding evening for the course, I would encourage all of you, apart from asking questions related to the subject on Abhidhamma, you may also like to express your opinion, how you feel about the course, how you feel about the way Sayādaw teaches the course. I think it would be very useful feedback for Sayādaw if you could give us your very frank opinion. All right? Anybody has any question?
Sayādaw, I am quite concerned about this, the act of organ transplant. Because at the moment of death, I think the donor, the organs from his body will be removed immediately after he's declared dead. Okay, so I don't know whether the definition of death in hospital medically, is it the same as the death defined in Buddhism? So if not the same, then the removal of the organ, will it cause any unwholesome thoughts in the donor's mind and cause the rebirth of this person to be in some unwholesome realm? Could you please enlighten me on that? Thank you.
Now, death is defined as the end of one life, and end of one life is explained as the cessation of life and then disappearance of heat in the body and then disappearance of consciousness. So that is what is called death. If there is still consciousness, then one is not supposed to be dead. And when there is what is called life faculty still in the body, then one is not dead yet. So when these three depart from the body, then the body is considered dead. And donating organs is, I think, a good practice, because it is a kind of Jhāna, and bodhisattvas especially practice such things. But bodhisattvas are described as giving away their parts of the body while they are alive. And for a donor, if he has no regrets about that, and if he sincerely make donation or writes a will or whatever, I think there can be no undesirable results from that act. And for those who take the organ out, I'm not sure, because death according to medical science may be different from death according to Abhidhamma. If all of the three are absent when the organ is taken out, then there can be no unwholesome act on the part of one who operates the man. But if he is still alive, according to Abhidhamma, there may involve taking of life. Because panadipada, the taking of life means making life shorter than it would have if it is not disturbed.
Sir, perhaps I could just add on to your answer. Medical death is defined as the cessation of all bodily function, and recently there's now the brain death criteria, which states that there's cessation of all mental activity, and there are 7 physical clinical signs that you go through to determine clinical death. Sir, I have a question, and it's regarding time. That we are all familiar with the concept of physical time, like morning, afternoon, and night, and how long it takes to go from point A to point B. My question relates to psychological time. In the process of psychological time, there is the process of becoming, and this is evident even as you meditate. One meditates, and in the psychological time space continuum, one thinks that in time to come I will improve, my mental defilements will be eradicated, and perhaps eventually become an enlightened being. My question is, in Abhidhamma or in Buddhism, what is the concept, or is there in reality this psychological time? Thank you.
Time is said to be a concept. So time has no existence of its own or something like that. Because we cannot say when time first arises and then when it will disappear, and so it is supposed to be to belong to the world of concepts. More than that, I don't know. I don't understand the psychological time, what that means.
I think by psychological time, it is different from physical time. Physical time is how we mark the day, the sun rises, the sun sets. But in psychological time, it does not follow, because time is relative. So in a psychological terms, the time is it exists in the psychology, and we extrapolate forward and backward, but it exists in psychological terms. It is not in physical terms. So what I mean is this concept of time in psychology, is it erroneous? Is it actually there?
I think what we call time exists in our mind or in our imaginations, and we designate a part of time to be morning, another part to be afternoon, evening, and so on. But actually, time is just time, and there is no morning or evening or whatever.
Anybody would like to make some comments about the cause? They are all in your feedback form, I know, but would anybody at least let Sayādaw hear about your comments?
Sayādaw, Early on in the part of the course, you mentioned about the bhavanga existing in Buddha, only interrupted only perhaps in a few occasions. So the bhavanga continues relatively uninterrupted, whereas in normal human beings we have a lot of bhavanga moments. My question is, since Buddha has to give a lot of discourses, does it mean that he has no mind activity occurring even when he sees and when he talks and when he answers questions?
Oh, mind works very fast. So even when talking, our minds may be working elsewhere or thinking of some other thing. I go on talking, but I may be thinking of some other thing as well. So there is always mental activity going on as long as life lasts. And when we are asleep, still there is mental activity, although this is not evident. So bhavanga is also a mental activity. Also we call it inactive thought moments. So inactive means not responding to the objects presented to us or we experience. So there is always mental activity so long as we are alive. And for Buddhas have a quick intellect, and so Buddhas do not need many bhavanga moments between thought processes. And especially when Buddha showed the twin miracle, that is the miracle of water and fire coming out of the body, Buddha had to enter into jhanas very quickly. So at those times, it is said in this book, about 4 or 5 times. But the ancient commentaries say that the bhavangas can be as few as 2 times for the Buddha. So that means just 2 bhavangas and then next thought process. And then that thought process ceases, and then 2 bhavanga moments, and then thought process. So for ordinary persons, there may be hundreds of bhavanga moments before another thought process takes place.
There's a written question here.
Sampajanya is translated as clear comprehension. That means correct understanding. Sampajanya comes only after one gets concentration. And sampajanya is the understanding of different activities as just the elements doing their own function, going on out of their own accord, and there is nobody regulating them, no person or no atman or whatever. So understanding that way is called sampajanya. Normally we think we walk, we bend, we stretch and so on, but through constant observation and through concentration we see that stretching is just the increase in air element, particles of air element caused by mind. So when we see this and there is no agent or no person involved in it, just the phenomena going on, then we are said to possess sampajanya or clear comprehension. So clear comprehension comes sometime after the practice. At the first moment or at the first session or sitting, I don't think sampajanya can come. So after some time, when one sees clearly and sees that there are only say mind and matter and no other thing that we can call an agent or an atta, then we get sampajanya. So when we walk, there is just the movements of the elements and nothing else. So seeing this way is sampajanya. And then we try to see the mind and the movement. During the lifting, do not reach to the stage of moving forward. So when it reaches the moving forward stage, there is another pair of mind and matter. And then that mind and matter rises and disappears at that moment. And then when we put it down, there is another pair of mind and matter, and so on. So seeing this way is called sampajanya. So sampajanya comes only after one gets good concentration. And the other question is about ye dhamma hetu pabhava. So this verse was uttered by Venerable Asaji to Upatesa, who was to become the Venerable Sariputta. And the commentaries say that it teaches the Paticca Samuppada in brief. Ye dhamma hetu pabhava. Those that arise from a cause. Tesam hetung tathagato aha. Their cause the Buddha proclaims. Tesancha yo nirodho. Their cessation also the Buddha proclaimed, and this is what the great recluse taught. So in this verse there is a mention of hetu, cause, and those that come from cause, and then also the cessation. So it teaches the Paticca Samuppada in brief. The Paticca Samuppada in brief is, when there is A, there is B. When there is no A, there is no B. This is the Paticca Samuppada formula in brief. So this verse also taught that Buddha taught those that arise through causes, and also their causes Buddha taught. So this verse is said to represent the dependent origination. And this verse is very popular in the olden days, but nowadays people don't use this much. In Burma there are many votive tablets with the Buddha image above, and underneath the Buddha this verse was written. And the King Anuruddha, who was a king of Burma in the 11th century, so he had these votive tablets, many of these made, and what he did was he had this verse written on the votive tablet, and the last line he had changed to, "Thus speak King Anuruddha." Patthana, he asked about Patthana also. So Patthana is the teaching of relationship between cause and effect, or condition and what is conditioned. And so according to the Patthana, everything is related to every other thing. So there is nothing that is absolute. And Patthana teaches not only that things are related, but it also teaches how or in what way they are related. So that is the difference between the dependent origination and Patthana. Dependent origination teaches just, say, because of A there is B, or because there is A as a condition there is B, and so on. But Patthana teaches that A is related to B in this way. Like saying, suppose there are two persons, father and son. So like saying these two persons are related. or these two persons are related as father and son. So Paticcasamuppada is like saying these two people are related, but does not mention the relationship. Patthana is like saying these two persons are related as father and son. So we can find the gem of Patthana in this verse, because it says that Buddha taught the cause of those that spring from causes. So that means Buddha taught cause and effect, and along with cause and effect there can be also the mode of relationship between the cause and effect. But it is more closer to Paticcasamuppada than Patthana here, because there is no mode of relationship mentioned in this verse. Okay.
Okay, next question, please.
Sayādaw, I have two questions to ask. When I log into the website, CNN website, Vietnam War, I noticed a video clips. This was about a Vietnamese monk. He was sitting in a lotus posture, and he was burning himself, protesting against the Americans. My eye consciousness perceived him as he was dead or painless. Even though the fire was devouring him, was he in the Jhāna state then? The precept said that we should refrain from killing. But in this case, the monk is killing himself. Is he against the precept? Thank you.
I don't quite understand. What is that? You understand? What?
Asking the monk was burning himself against the protesting against Americans.
Yes.
Okay, but when he burned himself, he was in a state of painless. What I perceive from eye consciousness. Is he against? Was he in the state of Java then? Jhāna then?
No, because when a person is in a state of jhana, fire cannot burn.
But if he is doing that, is he against the precept of taking his life?
That is problematic. Now, Ledi Sayādaw wrote in his book that killing oneself is not panadipada. But he did not give any reason or any textual evidence, but he just said it is not panadipada. I mean, not killing a living being or something. But if we go by the conditions that would fulfill the full course of action of killing, I think it is also, it may also be panadipada, but I'm not sure, because the killing becomes a full course of action when the 5 conditions are fulfilled, right? It must be a living being, and the person knows that it is a living being, and then there's an intention to kill, and then the effort, making the effort to kill, and the person being killed. So if these 5 are fulfilled, met with, then there is the full course of action of killing. So in killing oneself, all these 5 are found there. But since Ledi Sayādaw said killing oneself is not does not constitute panadipada, I'm unable to give you a definite answer.
Sayādaw, I've read in this Abhidhamma that there are beings who are also born into the Brahma realm, where they are more blissful and perhaps more pleasurable. There's a paradox here, that is, because they are born into this realm, they have a very long lifespan, and that means they will live a very long life before they have a chance to attain enlightenment or Buddhahood. Whereas on the contrary, those who are rebirthed into the human realm has got more suffering, and they have a better chance of attaining enlightenment because of being in samsara. So the question here is it more fortunate than to be reborn into the human world, so that there'll be suffering and in the samsara, which will hasten their development towards Buddhahood and enlightenment, rather than to be reborn into some Brahma realm of existence where they will take a long time, so-called in our Malay term, hantakaki there.
If your aim is to become a Buddha, you have to fulfill the paramis. And it is said that bodhisattvas, when they are reborn in a Brahma world or in the existence where they would live a long, long time, then they not kill themselves, but something like they made resolution in their minds that they die early, because only in the human world can they fulfill the paramitas effectively. But one thing what you said was you have to wait for a long time to become enlightenment, but that is not true, because a person is reborn as a Brahma, and he doesn't have to wait until the end of his life to become enlightened or to reach the next stage of enlightenment. Although the world of devas is filled with the sensual pleasures, even in the world of devas there are devas also who practice meditation, who give Dhamma talks and who listen to the Dhamma talks. So whether you are reborn as a deva or as a Brahma, if you practice, then you can reach enlightenment. But if you make a vow to become a Buddha, then it is better for you to be reborn in human world than in the Brahma worlds, because in the Brahma worlds you get not much chance to fulfill the paramis.
Okay. One last question.
Actually, I got no question, but I want to say some personal comments. I think these 11 nights have been time well spent. That's how I feel. Very fruitful, very enriching. In appreciation for the effort, the kindness, and the compassion of the Sayādaw who has taken time to teach us the Abhidhamma, can I propose that we collectively say sadhu 3 times?
Sadhu. Thank you. We have come to the end of part 1 Abhidhamma course. Like Sayādaw has said, we are still at the door of the study of Abhidhamma, because we have yet to collect all the keys to open the door to Abhidhamma. Nevertheless, it has been a very auspicious period of 11 continuous evenings, with this hall filled with Dhamma joy and positive energy in the quest for wisdom. It must be the collective good karma of all of you who are here throughout the 11 evenings that make this possible. I was told that many teachers of Abhidhamma will be happy if 50% of the original size of a class of 50 were to stay through the 5 lessons. Here, each evening, we have recorded at least 80% attendance out of a total of more than 200 participants. This is really remarkable, and we can only attribute this success to the blessings of the Triple Gem and the compassion of Sayādaw Sīlānanda. May we put our palms together and convey our salutation in the traditional way to the compassion of Sayādaw for his noble teaching. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. This noble project would not have been possible without the kindness and support of several organizations and individuals. I wish to take this opportunity this evening to acknowledge the contribution of some of these organizations and individuals. First, the joint organizers: Singapore Buddhist Federation, Palilai Temple, Ananda Mithyarama Buddhist Youth Circle, Long Sang Si Temple, and the Buddhist Fellowship. Venerable Kuan Ping for helping to secure permission for the use of this excellent performing arts center, and for obtaining the visa for Sayādaw's visit and to be able to speak in an open forum like this. For those of you who may not be familiar, getting a foreign person to speak, you have to apply for a lot of permits and permissions. Brother G.T. Gan for mooting the idea of this Abhidhamma course and his relentless effort in the coordination of the working committee and for serving as the communication hub between us and Sayādaw. Brother Wee Liang Tek for providing daily transportation for the 2 Sayādaws to and fro BDMS and the school here. Sister June, which is Mrs. Wee Liang Tek, for her unyielding effort in soliciting sponsors for this cause. Nanyang Optical Private Limited for sponsorship of the light refreshment we had enjoyed for the past 11 evenings. Palilai Temple for sponsorship of the printing cost of 1,000 copies of the book, A Comprehensive Manual of Abhidhamma, for which all of you have been given one. Ananda Mithyarama Buddhist Youth Circle for sponsorship of printing all lecture notes for the entire course. Manjusri Secondary School for the use of this excellent performing arts center and the school cafeteria and the services provided by the schoolkeeper, Auntie Betty. Sister Serene for standing in as MC when I was not available. The staff of Singapore Buddhist Federation for their administrative support, the working committee and all volunteers and helpers led by Brother T and Brother Patrick, all sisters and brothers, sponsors and donors for their generous financial support for this cause and also for making Sayādaw's holy pilgrimage to India possible. Last but not least, our brave young man Raymond Chia for taking up Sayādaw's challenge to computerize the consciousness and mental factor combination chart. Let's give all of them a big round of applause. Finally, and most importantly, all of you out there, the wonderful audience, without your support and participation, there would be no Abhidhamma course. We salute your dedication to the Dhamma and your devotion to the quest for wisdom. Despite a tired day's work from the office, many of you make every effort to attend the lectures without fail every evening. This augurs well for the future of Buddhism in Singapore. You all deserve a big round of applause for yourself. It is now my pleasure to call upon Venerable Quang Ping to make the closing address on behalf of the joint organizers. Venerable Sir.
Good evening to all of you, our most respected Sayādaw, ministers, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. I think all of us enjoy the lessons or the lectures by Sayādaw. I can see the smiles written on your face. And I should make this speech short and sharp because I want to give you more Kusala Siddha and Cetasika and not Akusala. So for most of us, when we first hear the Abhidhamma, we thought that Abhidhamma would be very difficult for us to understand. It's changeable, very difficult. But when we attending the lessons, we found that Abhidhamma was so interesting and were well explained by Sayādaw. I think we hope with this sincere request, Sayādaw will come back next year. And not later by June, I think, before we can forget what we learned. So with your support, my sincere thanks to you, and with as what Brother Lo was saying, that without you there is no Abhidhamma class here. So I hope you can give your continued support to the activities that are organized by us. Give your comments also, because we know there are room for improvements. So I'm thankful to you and Sayādaw. So may you all be well and happy, and we would like to see all of you here next year. Thank you.
We are indeed very grateful to the compassion of Sayādaw for taking time off his very busy teaching schedule to come all the way to Singapore to deliver his noble teaching to all of us. In appreciation of Sayādaw's compassion, Venerable Quang Ping will now present air tickets to India to Sayādaw as a small dana from all of us. In return, Sayādaw will present a small momentum to Venerable Quang Ping.
In fact, this to go to you and all the volunteers, not for you alone. Thank you.
Now we come to the highlight of this evening's announcement. Many of you would be wondering when Sayādaw will be back, but I think Sayādaw has made an announcement that he will most likely be back in June. Tentative arrangement to continue part 2 of the Abhidhamma course. Few more keys to acquire. Sayādaw will only make it in June provided he has no other priority commitments during that time, and we will have to wait till then. However, if we want to be sure that Sayādaw will come back in June, we will have to practice what he has taught us so far and meditate very hard to send positive energy to bring him back here. If you wish to continue part 2 of the Abhidhamma course in June, you are given the first priority to pre-register now in a form that we have given you. As for the availability of the CD, audio CD or CD-ROM, we have not decided which way to go, either audio CD or CD-ROM, but it is in our plan to go ahead to produce them. However, we cannot let you know what the cost would be until we have enough statistics to know how many are interested and how much we will produce. So please help us in the survey form at the back, indicate your interest so that we can work out the cost and get back to you as soon as we can. Again, on behalf of the organizing committee, I thank all of you for being such a wonderful audience, and we are inspired by your devotion to the learning of the Dhamma and your quest for wisdom. May Sayādaw's noble teaching of the Abhidhamma bring much development to your wisdom. May we now rise and put our palms together while I invite Sayādaw to lead us for the transference of merits.
May all beings share these merits that we have acquired through these Dhamma activities.
May all beings share these merits that we have acquired through these Dhamma activities.
May they all share in the merits gained, enjoy good health, prosperity and happiness.
May they all share in the merits gained, enjoy good health, prosperity and happiness.
May they cultivate loving kindness and wisdom.
May they cultivate loving kindness and wisdom.
May they attain the bliss of Nibbana.
May they attain the bliss of Nibbana.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Please be seated. All right, now those of you who would like to offer dana to Sayādaw, you may proceed now. Brother Gan, yeah. Please go ahead.